Hi, Alice.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm so happy that you're the first person who will talk with me in this series of conversations named Bread and Roses. The purpose is to present all of us who are trying to coordinate this beautiful campaign, My Voice, My Choice, and also to talk with our allies. And the name Bread and Roses is coming from my biggest inspiration in feminist fights. This is from the fight of New York women who were fighting for equal salary. And my first question to you is, what is your biggest inspiration in your fight? Is there any movement which was happening, which is like your hope and like something that you hold on when you don't know how to continue?
Yeah, I think my biggest inspiration came from the women liberation movement in the 70s in France. They were the ones that made me want to be an activist. You know, there's so many reasons to become an activist. You can become an activist because you're so cross, enraged about everything which is going on in the world. But actually, those women who fought in France in the 70s for women's rights, they made me want to become an activist because of joy, because of love, because of happiness. Because when I saw the things they did, I thought they were so great. They seemed to have fun. I just felt like I want this life. I want to be them. So what's even more interesting there is that at that time, their main fight was actually fighting for abortion in France. So that makes me all the more happy to be part in this campaign.
Yeah, I know Simone de Beauvoir and like what they did, like how they let the world know that they did an abortion, that they want to change the law is also something which is one of my favorite moments in this
Wow,
history.
see?
Yeah, but now you are actually living this life. So, like, you are many different things. You're city councillor, you're activist, you are writer, like, you are one of the loudest voices for like more equal society. How is it to live that kind of life?
It's can be tough, but I guess I would only remember the way it helps me to live. I mean, it helps not to feel powerless. I think that would be the worst. I mean, watching the world every day is kind of difficult if you become aware of all injustice and everything. And so, being an activist and able to have a voice is for me more than a suffering, even though it's very violent. I have many attacks and everything. It's really a privilege for me. I really feel like I always think when you're able to write books, to be invited on TV sets, to be elected, that means you have huge responsibility, because really it's a huge privilege to be able to voice out what so many people are enduring every day without being able to talk or speak or anything. So yeah, I guess that's exactly the life I wanted. So not ready to stop any of this.
Yeah, I wrote in my notebook one of the things that you said, and this is that activism is basically a rent that we pay to live on this planet.
Yeah, exactly. This is a sentence from Alice Walker, who was fighting against racism, patriarchy in the US, and the color purple. And I think it's a great sentence, because for me it's really this, like, I'm here, okay, activism is the rent I pay for living of this planet. And this really, really suits me as an activist motto.
Yeah, one of the questions that I hate the most is when people ask me when was the exact moment that you know that you're now an activist. And now I will ask you the same question because I want to travel with you to your beginnings and like what were the first things that you did trying to change things?
Oh, I guess the moment I felt this is, for me, activist really means direct action also. Uh, Things that you can act upon, events, decisions, which usually would think, uh, there's nothing we can do about this. this is the government, this is that or that corporation. There's nothing we can do about it. The time when you wake up in the morning and you know you have something set during the day when you are going to come out in the streets or in a conference or wherever you need to act, and you will interrupt all this circus, all this stupidity they are doing. That's the way you can really feel an activist. And for me, it was really taking part with a feminist French group, which is called La Barbe. La Barbe means the beard in France. And you know what we do? We have false beards, and we go in every place in France where men are in a huge majority ruling, I don't know, General Assembly, running a cultural festival, being the only one on stage, and we come up with our false beards and we shout out to them how great they are to maintain patriarchy, how wonderful it is that they resist any female invasion. We make fun of them, basically, and it really kind of very empowering because you get to talk on a stage where every woman was excluded, and you also get to tell them their truth, and that they're not that worth it, and that if they are there, that's basically because they are men only.
And I guess that they're really excited when you show up, huh?
They kind of, they have all these classic answers like, oh no, you're getting the wrong target, you're perfect. They're like only like 50 men on stage, and they're telling you, no, you're exaggerating. It's not that bad with us. So they will always find ways, like, to excuse themselves. And well, it goes differently. I've made hundreds of those kind of actions in many places, like sport federations, like really other places, Festival de Cannes in France and everything. And they tend to react slightly differently. Some of them can get very violent. I got really pushed out very violently from some stages and everything. But I think what's most important is really the fun we have in preparing those actions. The fear we have also. We're very scared when you begin. I always say we're not braver than anyone. I always feel like my heart is really tense when I need to go on stage and stop all the nonsense. And you can do it as many times as you want. You will always be a little scared, but we do it, and then we also have a lot of fun doing it. So really, I think that's what holds it together. It's really the fact of bringing other activists together, getting ready for preparation, and that's my kind of thing. I like a lot. We mentioned Simone de Beauvoir earlier, but I like to read feminism theory and everything. But most of all, I would really define the way I fight for women's rights as really very practical. It's organizing events and direct actions, and that also really helps to escape from some of the fights which can go on in the feminist movement, like you don't agree on this and this and this. When you have to organize something together, when you have to get a task that would seem to anyone really crazy, like you won't be able to do it, like you have so few times. And we always put ourselves in really huge challenges, and that helps stick people together. And I think that's what makes the spirit of the revolution. So that's also why I really love the campaign we're in, because of this European campaign, because it has all the good things, like you're getting really huge challenges, having to fulfill them very quickly. And I think that helps holding some groups together and creating a huge solidarity too.
I think that also one of the things that the French team is teaching us is how important it is to sometimes destroy the comfortable situation for the people who are basically in positions of power. How important it is to go somewhere and break their silent and enjoyment of the moment when they are all on the stage. Can you tell a little bit more about this?
Yeah, and this I experienced both as an activist, but also as an elected person. There's so many places where those guys have been saying the same things for ages, have been deciding things for all the rest of the population without taking into account everyone's wellness. And it's really interesting how just by saying something, just by facing them, just by showing them that you're not afraid, even if you are, then it changes things, because they are so not used to be countered or to be silenced or anything, that it already changes the game. So that's really what we do. We try to do every day, to go in every places of power, and where really unfair decisions are taken, and be loud. And that's the way really it works, because they never expect you to do this, or to react. They think this has been going on for ages. Why would it be different? And so I really think sometimes it doesn't take that much to really change the game. Just showing that you are there, and that they won't get away with it that easily.
And like one of your weapons is also like using words. You started as journalist. You wrote a really like successful book which brought a lot of attention.
Yeah, I really love to go with what I call media activism, and that is using the media to enhance and every action we do. Because for me, it's really key. The key of structure of power is who gets to speak in the public space, who gets to have their voice heard in the media environment, and in any public space. So for this, it's quite simple. I know they're not ready to hear us. They're not ready. I mean, as a lesbian, as a feminist, I know they won't on purpose, or they won't voluntarily give me a place. So we have to invite ourselves in those places. And the most easy way to do this is to make sure we go where the news already is. Like, we go where the pictures, the photographs are already there, and we act on it. Because constructing and building an election that will get attention from the media is very often much too long. Whereas if you make sure you cross their attention and be at the exact place where they are going to be, understand the way journalists get interested to things or not, then it's much more efficient and quick to have your actions relayed.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the book you wrote? Like, we are all like really wanting it to be translated to Slovenian and to other languages. And like, what was your idea behind the book, and what happened after the book was published?
Okay, the book is called Lesbian Genius. And that comes from the way many men react, in cultural places in particular. Like, you go to theaters, you go to movie festival, and you realize that, like, they only invited men screenwriters and men actors and everything, and you tell them, isn't there a problem there? I mean, how come? And they will tell you, no, we're not at all sexist. It's a question of genius. Genius has no sex. It just happens. It were all men, which were more genius than women. So that's a kind of a play on the word genius, and calling it lesbian genius, because that's really how the cultural world, the media world, defend itself when it comes to excluding everybody but men. And then the book is really about activism, about a decade of activism, the way I lived it, both as an activist, a journalist in France. And it really also questions the principle of journalism, such as they are taught in France, which is very based on the notion of neutrality, objectivity, and they will always use the newsrooms, always use this concept of neutrality to tell many people that they cannot do good journalism, that they are too much biased. Then when you're a lesbian journalist, then you can't cover LGBT issues because then you will have a bias. And of course, some people never get to be called biased. That people would be white cis men generally, and nobody will question the way, of course, they also have bias in their own life, and they are the only one to be able to tell stories and everything. And I think this question of neutrality and objectivity is really important to challenge. And so the book is also a lot about this, and then it's also about all the legendary story of feminism and lesbian activism, and the way we can, try to hold on to it and keep on the fight. The book was really, it created a lot of mess in France. Like there were many articles about it, and I got really attacked, like death threats, rape threats everywhere. Just because, I wrote some things like saying, maybe we don't all have to read maiden books. Maybe it's time we choose voluntarily to go to read some other books written from women. I was explaining that during all my childhood, during my studies, I always got to read men books, and maybe it was good to change a little. And the guys really became really crazy. Like they were like, I was threatening what they had and anything. And that was really interesting because I think it was also the book Lesbian Genius was about also how we are linked with the feminist revolution in the 70s, which said my body, my choice, and how now we get to say also my mind, my choice. And I want to choose the way my imagination, my mind is, my brain is flooded by the movies I watch, by the books I read, by the images I see on TV. And that it's also very important that we get to choose this, because it's essential to the way we will behave afterwards in society. So as usual, for me as an activist, I know it's a success when I see the reaction. If they get really cross, if they get really angry, that means, oh, you've touched a nerve. That's good. That was the place where you had to be. So according to this, the book went very well.
Before I got to know you, I was talking about you with Sarah Durieux, like one of my favorite people, and also someone who is working with us at the campaign. And in one moment she said, Nika, you and Alice have something in common. For a lot of people, you are not a person anymore. You are like someone that needs to be smashed, someone that needs to be attacked, someone that like needs to basically hear a lot of shit about yourself. And like, how do you deal with all this noise around you? Like, how do you switch it off? How do you like continue to live your life?
Yeah, it's really, sometimes it's even funny. Like when I meet journalists, like we talk and everything, and at the end of the interview, they go like, "Oh my God, I'm so relieved. I was really afraid to meet you. I think you were going to hit me or something." I always say, "What? I mean, what? How could you think this?" And they really have this whole image built in their head of what you are like, and because they say, "Oh, you're nice," actually, and like it's the old cliche, the angry feminist women and everything, and that they are totally still into it. So I guess the noise is okay because it's also nice, a lot of nice noise, a lot of support, a lot of specifically among young people being really supported, sending messages every day to say please hold on, please go on, don't stop and everything. So that's pretty okay. But then I guess really for me the magic thing is I'm not doing this alone. I mean, it's always I like to work with a group, with groups of people, with group of activists, with preparing together actions and everything. So that helps a lot.
Yeah, and one of the beautiful like things about you and the whole team is that you basically are not just faces. You're not just people who would be speaking in public and like writing books and like giving interviews, but you do like a shitload of work behind the scenes. You do everything, and this is so rare.
No, for me, it's really important that you always get also to go and do the shopping to build up placards. You go to buy copies of things. You need to prepare and get the food for everybody and everything, and that everybody's doing all the stuff because yeah, that's part of the job. So I mean, sometimes people say, "Oh, it's really looks so great," or your actions, you must love it. And I say, yeah, well, it's not only like this, it's also a lot of waking up early, taking your bike to go and fill a lot of boxes and every very practical and concrete tasks you need to do to be successful in an action. And I think, yeah, it's really good that I mean, everybody gets to do this.
Yeah, and you're traveling a lot around France, like giving workshops, speaking with people. Like, what is the thing which is giving you hope when you do this? Like, what are the small glimpses of spring around us?
Well, the way people react to what we are telling them from now, and that's really thanks to the way you invited us to be part of the campaign. Like, for example, we talk a lot about what the Institute of the 8th of March is doing and explain to them your position on things and your strategy. And I can see in their eyes how impacted they are, like mostly when telling them, well, you know, there's many ways where of acting upon the political scene. You don't have to be in a political party, you can act differently and be very efficient. And telling them stories from all the other great activists we're working within this campaign. You can see the light in the eyes, and afterwards they feel really enthusiastic and they want to be part. So that's really the thing, to make sure people want to be part of it. And mainly, I would really mainly think because of two things is like fun and joy, and then kind of a promise of impact, and that really makes people want to work with you.
Yeah, so basically, maybe now we can jump to the second big topic of the conversation, and you did an amazing introduction to it, which is like the campaign which is trying to make abortion safe and accessible throughout the Europe. And I think that like one of the moments when we all said maybe this can actually like be successful campaign was what happened in France. What happened with the constitution in France, how you won one of the greatest fights, how you celebrated danced on the street. Can you tell a little bit more about the context of this fight, how it started, like what was happening, and then like how did the winning look like?
Yeah, what's interesting there is 2 years ago, when the ID first came out, and specifically from some politics or others, everyone was saying this is impossible. This is like, there's no way. There's no way. You need, if you want abortion in the constitution, you have to get the French Senate. And the French Senate is like a lot of a bunch of old men and everything, and they're never gonna say yes to this. So then again, we have this kind of challenge, like, you can do it, you can do it. So that's never gonna happen. And then it does, and it does because of a lot of cleverness, I think, of the people who were doing this, a lot of strategy, but also the fact that you must not believe what you're told. Like, people are always going to tell you it's impossible because they have an interest in telling you this. I mean, it's a way for them to keep their power, to keep things unchanged. The first strategy is to say, this will never happen. You're wasting your time. This is not true. Very often this is not true. And for abortion, it was really interesting because, in fact, when you talk to the rest of the society, the best of the society, it was okay. It was okay with them. It was only people in power who were saying it's not possible. If you ask French society, a majority was okay with the fact of having abortion in the constitution and was understanding this. But most of the times, because like these big journalists, big politicians, they are louder than anybody else in the society, then they will make you think it's impossible. So you won't go for it. And that's a really good lesson that I think we also taught to them, that we're not believing you anymore, saying that things won't change and things are impossible, because proof is it did go well. And indeed, I think it's because also like there was a vast majority of in the society which was okay with this, but also, and it's really important also for our campaign, because of the noise people heard from outside of France. And they heard what was going on in the United States. They heard what was going on in Poland about abortion. They heard bad news from so many countries, that I think they realized we were not okay. We were not okay in France. We needed to be have this right to abort much more secured. So really, the two things that happen will be because we did not believe it was impossible, and because we thought it was possible, then it happened, and because of international perspective, which was really important in this case.
And you also managed to somehow unite like the civil society, the influencers. Like, how did this process like happen? Like, how was it possible that all of these voices at the end came together?
Yeah, that's what's really interesting, I think, in abortion as a feminist fight, is that you can get to build alliances with people who would not be daily activists, who would not, like they don't spend their lives fighting for women's rights. But I think when it comes to abortion, it was more easy to get famous actresses, big influencers on the social media to help and to make sure noise would be heard. And that's also a lesson. Like, there are something about the fight on abortion, which is really fight for women bodies, for individual choices, and for women freedom, that really rings a bell in many people, in a much wider way than other fights in dealing with women's rights. So I think that's why they came together. And also because, if there's a joy, there's a pride in taking part in a fight that you think would be impossible, and in fact is possible. So I think it's also about telling people, you're great. We need you. And something that, they wouldn't dare, those people who have huge influences or anything. And when you go to them and say, we really need you, you could help, you could make a change, really. Like, so very often they feel like there's a separation between the activist world and what they are doing. And when you get to them and ask them their help, sometimes it works.
Yeah. And how was to win? Like, you were there on the square. Like, what are your memories about this event?
Yeah, this was amazing, because it was really also, they were all the older activists which fought in the 70s were there. It was this big place in front of the Eiffel Tower with huge screens showing the votes in the French Congress. And there was such a joy. I mean, people were dancing, people were shouting. And I think it's really important also we had the feeling that it was important to have a celebration. Like, it's not that often that feminists get a victory, which was very clear. And we need also to have a storytelling. We say we can be successful, we can succeed. And this time, the bad guys lost. I mean, really, you lost. It's not only that we won, but you're the ones always telling us, religion is coming back, far right is not gaining so much power, we're gonna crush you, you're a band of walkists and everything, then it was very important to tell them and to show them that our joy and tell them, you lose, you bunch of losers, you just lost, and we have this huge victory. So it's never only facts, it's not only a vote, it's always the way you are going to tell it, the way you are going to make a story around it. And in this case, the story was really, we're powerful and we're very joyful.
Yeah. One of the lies that people keep telling us is that like abortion is a topic which is divisive, which is like a topic where there is this big polarization. But if you take a look to the public opinions from like all European countries, we can see that majority of people is actually fully supporting abortion.
Exactly. And that's what really makes the difference, not letting some people who have voices have the only privilege to tell what people think about abortion, because they will tell you, oh no, it's still very controversial, we don't want to divide society, and that's the way they are having the storytelling because it serves their interest. So yes, indeed, when we met, heard the people, heard the opinions, they were a majority really supporting abortion, and extremely clearly. So that's also part of the lies we have to debunk every time. It's part of the fight, really, like changing the frame of the story on abortion.
Yeah. Like, I still remember how we came in touch with you about the campaign. It was like around Christmas. It was Peter helping us to connect with you and Sylvia. And like, we were really desperate. We had like this big idea in the Institute to get together like 8 different countries, activists, to fight for abortion on a European level, to protect the women from Poland because of their laws, to make it happen that like in some countries, like all the women will be able to do the abortion for free. And I still remember how we talked on the Zoom, like with Sylvia and you both said, yes, let's do it. Like, let's just try to do it. How did you like perceive the first call, the first like knowledge about the campaign? Why it was such a clear and easy yes?
No, but because of this, I think the answer is in the question. I mean, it's like immediately. For me, it was very clear. And for Sylvia too, we thought, oh my God, this is great. This is a great idea. And so we thought, if we think this, many other people would think this. And why is it so impactful? And because, well, more precisely, because, like I said, I'm really always considering the way what will be said in the news, how journalists are going to cover things and everything. What is the media talking about? And abortion has really been in the news lately, so I know it's a win. I mean, it's something which will be heard. This fight will be heard, and also because of the possibility to through this fight for abortion, to build also very strong solidarities between feminist movements in Europe, which is for me as important as the final target in the campaign. I mean, it's only been joy since we talked during this Christmas, because it was already knowing your action, what you're doing in Slovenia, which is a huge source of inspiration, and to know that we will meet and work together facing these huge challenges with other feminists in Europe is per se something extremely important, not only for the months to come, but I really think for the years and decades to come, to build such a movement. It's extremely important. We've been needing this for so long. And I was talking about this sentence from Alice Walker, activism is the rent I pay for living on this planet. She had another one, which was, we are the people we are waiting for. I mean, that's us. We are the people we've been waiting for. It's not somebody else who's going to do this. I mean, we're doing it. So yeah, really, I think it's, and that's what I tell to everyone when we travel around France. I tell them, listen, it's a really strong thing. This campaign, it's really serious. It's really like the people who are doing this are really trustworthy, and that you can feel. I mean, with years and years of activism, you know when someone is talking to you about a campaign, it's when it's worth it, and when also you can trust fully the people you're going to work with.
And like we will do like a lot of fun stuff like in next couple of weeks. So probably we will start collecting signatures in 1 month. What is your plan for France? Like what is waiting for us? And also, can you speak just a little bit about like more joyful things that we will do together?
Yeah, sure. So we're planning to have this the topic of abortion really burst out in the French media using the European campaign. Like we're already not scaring, but a little scaring some journalists, because what we do is we kind of listen to every interview of journalists going on when they ask politicians about, so what would you do when you're in the European Parliament? And we take note, we count, and we say, oh my God, we had 2 hours interview. How come the topic of abortion and women's rights never came up during your questions? Please do better next time. And so we're going to stick, and every morning, every evening, when they are interviewing and talking about this European campaign in the media, and of course forgetting to talk about abortion and women's rights, make sure we get calls, we get people to tell them on the social media, hey, you're a journalist, how come you never ask this question, and you have so many questions which are useless, and why are you avoiding the topic? Why are you not talking about this campaign which is going on? So this is on the media side that we're going to go really like offensive on this. Then we are also planning, because it will like correspond to the way the time the campaign will be really there, to invade all demonstration on the 1st of May in France, which is a Labor Day, and usually there's huge demonstration in the streets of France. So we will have like this giant balloon, which we are already learning to direct and conduct, because people have been telling us, a giant balloon in the streets of Paris, you will get stuck in trees or in some Parisian monuments. But we think we will manage to do this and connect it in the streets in the streets of Paris. And then we also are really preparing and using all our allies on this. Like, it's not only the feminist movement, it's many other people fighting for other topics in France who want to join, who want to support us. And so I think it really, the feeling that it's something which is has international solidarity is really helping there.
But I think it also won't be only easy. Like, one of the things that we are experienced like last couple of weeks is again like attacks, threats, and for us, we always say in the Institute, this is just the way how they want us to be quiet. This is just the way how they want to scare us. And that's why we just need to be louder, clearer, and continue with our fighting. You experience this a lot. Like, what is your recipe? How to survive this shit?
Not being afraid of them. Like, really, like, you're doing it more. Like, telling them, okay, you're attacking, you want to silence us, well, look at us. And for example, for the campaign, we know we already getting some kind of attacks, and we say, okay, very well, for now we have only been going in some places in France where like people, they were not ruled by the far right or opponents, and now we have decided to go in towns which are governed by the far right, and to come and go in their places and have meetings about the campaigns. And that's a way just to tell them, we're not afraid of you, so you can go on, but we will do it even more.
Yeah, and one of other things you mentioned, like cities who are governed by far right, we are always also saying that this campaign is not just about like fighting for reproductive rights. It's also like a way how to make noise about European elections. Why are these topics connected, in your opinion, and why is it important who we get into the institutions?
Yeah, of course, it's and I think that's really also what drains and appeals to people about the campaign. That it's, of course, abortion is central to the campaign, but it's also a way of being impactful on who will be in charge of European topics in the years to come. They're totally connected, because I guess if you see the way the offensive of a lot of the reactionary people, conservative people is going on, they targeted basically a lot women, LGBT people, Muslim, a whole bunch of people, and among the people they target, women are certainly the one they are more trust about. So I think working for this is really a political also topic. Like, you are useful to the political field when you fight for abortion, and it's really connected. And it's also connected in another way. It's that, you know, they have managed to create huge networks, to be extremely responsive when anything happens. I experienced this when I saw how the Italian people fighting against LGBT rights were so much connected with the French people, and they were all doing this massive network, massive offensive on the in the social media. And we need this. We need some kind of task force in the European continent to be able to respond really quickly when anything happens. And that's also, I think, why people should sign this, because then they will be part of this. They will be part of this task force that we need for the decades to come. And I know so many people in Europe are afraid of what's going on, are afraid of who will be ruling the European institutions. The best way not to be afraid is join the force. Join us with having a signatures. That means for the years to come, you will not be alone. This is not only about the campaign for abortion. This is also about creating a huge network that we will need so much in the years to come.
Yeah, all of this is true. And I think, like, you wrapped up our conversation in a really, like, beautiful way. Alice, I'm so extremely thankful that you joined our fight. I feel really, like, happy to be on this journey with you and, like, all the people in your team. I hope I will have same conversations also with Silvia and Sarah, because I think that people need to hear more about also these two amazing forces. But before we say goodbye, like, a lot of people who are watching this are right now, like, thinking, should they join us? Should they come with us? Like, can you just give, like, one final invitation? Why we need volunteers, why we need voices, why it's even better if there is more of us in this journey?
Well, listen, first of all, I would tell you, you will meet the greatest people on earth, really. Like, I can tell you, I'm having so much joy and fun being part of this campaign. And being part of this campaign is not only like, if you don't have the time to be on a daily basis, we can also use you for and get to work with you for some specific missions. If you have time once in a week to go and spread out the word and make sure we collect a lot of signatures, that's already great. And we really already need you even for this, even if it's once a week. Whatever you can do is so much important. And then if you do not have time, and we understand so many people are busy with their lives, just the signatures, just telling everybody you know about the fact that you signed and for the campaign is something which makes you part of this huge story we are starting to build. And I can tell you, when you remember later on, growing older, on anything, I'm sure this is a story you will like to tell. So be part of it.
Thank you so much. I hope that we see each other soon in Brussels, Paris, Ljubljana, and good luck with everything.
Thanks. Bye, Nika. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.